Hello, students. I'm continuing to read this Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard, the Hammer of Thor. We are now on chapter 5. So, the heading of chapter 5 is My Sword Has a Better Social Life Than I Do. It's a good thing I didn't go to lunch. The buffet was usually fought to the death, and as distracted as I felt, I would have gotten impaled by a fondue fork before I filled my plate. Most activities in Valhalla were done to the death. Scrabble, whitewater rafting, pancake eating, croquet. Tips: don't ever play Viking croquet. I got to my room and took a few steps beneath. I took a few deep breaths. I half expected the place to be as trash as AF's room, like maybe the suites were so similar mine would decide to mess itself up so in solidarity. Instead, it was just the way I left it, only cleaner. I'd never seen the housekeeping staff. Somehow, they always managed to tidy things up when I'm gone. They made the bed whenever I slept in it or not. They scrubbed the bathroom even if I'd just done that myself. They pressed and folded my laundry, though I was careful never to leave my clothes lying around. Seriously, who irons and starches underwear? I felt guilty enough having this huge suite to myself. The idea of housekeepers picking up after me only made it worse. My mom had raised me to take care of my own messes. Still, as much as I tried to do that here, the hotel staff swooped in daily, sanitized everything without mercy. The other thing they did was leave me presents. That bothered me more than the starched underwear. I made my way over to the fireplace. When I first checked in, there was only one photo on the mantel, a shot of my mom and me when I was 8, standing at the summit of Mount Washington. Since then, more pictures had appeared. Some that I remember from childhood, some that I had never ever seen before. I didn't know where the hotel staff found them. Maybe as the suite became more attuned to me, the photos just emerged from the cosmos. Maybe Valhalla kept a backup copy of every warrior's life on the iCloud. In one photo, my cousin Annabeth stood on a hill, the Golden Gate Bridge, and San Francisco in the background. Her blonde hair blew sideways. Her gray eyes gleamed as if somebody had just told her a joke. Looking at her made me happy because she was family. It was also made me anxious because it was a constant reminder of our last conversation. According to Annabeth, our family, the Chases, had some sort of special appeal to the ancient gods. Maybe it was our winning personalities. Maybe it was our brand of shampoo. Annabeth's mom, the Greek goddess Athena, had fallen in love with her dad, Frederick. My dad, Frey, had fallen in love with my mother, Natalie. If somebody came up to me tomorrow and told me, "Surprise!" and the ancient gods were alive and well in Houston, and my second cousin was a granddaughter of Quetzalcoatl, I would totally believe them. Then I would run screaming off a cliff into a big river. The way Annabeth figured it, all the old myths were true. They fed off human memories and beliefs, dozens of musty pantheons still muscling up against one another like they did in the old days. As long as their stories survived, the gods survived. The stories were almost impossible to kill. Annabeth had promised we would talk about it further. So far, we hadn't had the chance. Before she returned to Manhattan, she warned me that she rarely uses a cell phone because they were dangerous for demigods, though I had never noticed any problems before. I tried not to worry that she's been totally silent since January. since still I wondered what might be going on down there in Greek and Roman land. My hand drifted across the mantel to the next photo. This one was harder to look at. My mother and her two brothers, all in their 20s, sat together on the steps of the family brownstone house. Mom looked just as always as I remembered her. Pixie haircut, infectious smile, freckles, tattered jeans, and flannel shirt. If you could have hooked up a generator to her joy of life, you could have powered the entire city of Boston. Sitting next to her was my Uncle Frederick, Annabeth's father. He wore two big cardigans over an Oxford shirt and beige slacks riding halfway up his calf. He held a model World War I biplane in one hand and grinned like a huge dork. On the top step besides them was his hands planted on his siblings' shoulders. Sat their big brother, Randolph. He looked about 25, though he had one of those people who was born to be old. His close-cropped hair was so blonde it passed for gray. His large, round face and burly frame made him resemble a club bouncer more than an Ivy League grad student. Despite the smile, his eyes were piercing, his posture guarded. He looked as if any second he would charge the photographer, take the camera, and stomp on it. My mom had told me over and over, don't go to Randolph, don't trust him. She stunned him for years, refused to take me to the family mansion in Back Bay. When I turned 16, Randolph had found me anyway. He told me about my godly father. He guided me to the sword of summer and promptly got me killed. That made me a little wary of seeing good old Uncle Randolph again, though Annabeth thought we should give him the benefit of the doubt. He's family, Magnus, she told me before she left for New York. We can't give up on family. Part of me supposed she was right. Part of me thought Randolph was a dangerous piece of work. I didn't trust him further than I could throw him, and even with this warrior strength of mine, I couldn't throw him very far. Gee, Magnus, you might be thinking, that's really harsh of you. He's your uncle. Just because your mom hated him, he ignored you most of your life, and then he got you killed. You don't trust him? Yeah, I know. I was being unreasonable. The thing is, what bothered me most about Uncle Randolph wasn't our past. It was the way the photo of the three siblings had changed since the last time I seen it. At one point, I didn't get how a new mark had appeared on Randolph's cheek, a symbol as faint as a water stain, and now I knew what it meant. I held up the pot. I've taken from AF's room, the initials etched in clay and stamped with two entwined snakes. Definitely the same design. Somebody had branded my uncle's face with the mark of Loki. I stared at the snake's mark for a long time, trying to make sense of it. I wish I could talk to Hearthstone, my expert in runes and symbols, or Blitzen, who knew about magic items. I wish Sam were here, because if I was going crazy and seeing things, she would be the first to slap some sense into me. Since I didn't have any of them to talk to, I pulled out my pendant and summoned Jack the sword. Hey, senor, Jack somersaulted through the air, his runes glowing blue and red. Nothing like a little disco lighting when you want to have a serious conversation. Glad you woke me up. I have a date this afternoon with a hot spear. And if I missed that, oh man, I would stab myself. Jack, I said, I'd rather not hear about your dates with other magical weapons. Come on, you need to get out. You need to get out more. If you want to be my wingman, I could totally set you up. This spear has a friend. Jack, fine, he signed, which caused his blade to glow a lovely shade of indigo. No doubt that Lady Spears found that very attractive. So what's up? No more ninjas to fight, I hope? I showed him the serpent's mark on the piece of pottery. You know anything about this symbol? Jack floated closer. Yeah, sure. That's one of Loki's marks. I don't have a PhD in Germanic literature or anything, but I think it represents, snakes. I started to wonder if summoning Jack had been a good idea. So, our new neighbor across the hall makes pottery, and every pot of his, this symbol is on the bottom. Huh, I would guess he's a son of Loki. I know that, Jack. But why would he brag about it? Sam doesn't even like to mention her dad. This guy stamps Loki's symbols on all his work. No accounting for taste, Jack said. Once I met a throwing dagger with a cleric grip. Can you imagine? I picked up the photo of the three Chase siblings, but something during the last week, that same Loki symbol appeared on my uncle's face. Any thoughts, Jack? Jack planted his tip of his blade in the living room carpet. He bent forward until the hilt was an inch from the photo. Maybe he was getting nearsighted, near-hilted. Said Jack. You want my opinion? Well, yeah, of course I do, says Magnus. I think it's pretty strange. I waited for more. Jack did not elaborate. Okay then, I said. You don't think there's a coincidence between, another child of Loki showing up in Valhalla and this weird mark on Randolph's face, and the fact that suddenly, after a couple of months of quiet, we have to find Thor's hammer right away to avoid some invasion? When you put it all like that, Jack said, you're right. It's very strange. But Loki is always showing up in weird places. And Thor's hammer? Jack vibrated in place like he was either shuddering or suppressing a laugh. Myanmar is always getting misplaced. I swear, Thor needs to have that hammer duct taped to his face. I doubted I would be getting that image out of my head anytime soon. How can Thor lose it so easily? How could anyone steal it? I thought my myrrh was so heavy nobody else could even pick it up. Common misconceptions, Jack said. Forget all that only the worthy can lift it stuff from the movies. The hammer is heavy, but you get enough giants together, sure, they can lift it. Now wielding it, throwing it correctly, catching it again, summoning lightning from the sky, now that takes some skill. But I've lost count of the number of times Thor has fallen asleep in some forest, prankster giants have rolled up in a backhoe loader, and the next thing you know, the thunder god is hammerless. Most of the time, he gets it back quickly, kills the pranksters, and lives happily ever after. But not this time. Jack wobbled back and forth, a version of a shrug. I suppose getting the hammer back is important. The hammer is powerful, inspires fear in the giants, smashes entire armies, keeps the forest forces of evil from destroying the universe and whatever. Personally, I always found kind of a bore. He just sits there most of the time, doesn't say a word. He doesn't ever invite him to karaoke night at the Nuclear Rainbow. Disaster. I completely had to carry both parts of Love Never Felt So Good. I wondered if Jack's blade was sharp enough to cut off the too much information he was giving me. I guess not. Last question, I said. Halfborn mentioned that his new child of Loki was an Arg, A-R-G-R, Arg. Do you have any idea what that means? I love Args, Jack somersaulted with glee, nearly slicing my nose off my face. Phrase fripperies. We have a guard across the hall. That's great news. Huh. So one time we were in Midgard, me and Frey and a couple of elves, right? It was like 3 a.m. and this Arg walked up to us. Jack howled with laughter, his runes pulsating the full Saturday fever mode. Oh, wow, that was an epic night. But what exactly? Someone knocked on my door. TJ poked his head in. Magnus, sorry to bother you. Oh, hey, Jack, what's up? TJ, Jack said, you recovered from last night. TJ chuckled, though he looked embarrassed. Just about. I frowned. You guys went partying last night? Oh, senor, Jack chided. You really need to come out with us. You haven't lived until you've gone clubbing with a Civil War bayonet. TJ cleared his throat. So anyway, I came to get you, Magnus. The battle's about to start. I think we'll stop right there. This isn't completely... I'm going to finish it. TJ cleared his throat. So anyway, I came to get you, Magnus. The battle's about to start. I looked around for a clock, then remembered I didn't have one. Isn't it early? It's Thursday, TJ reminded me. I cursed. Thursdays were special. And complicated. I hated them. Let me grab my gear. Also, TJ said the Hotel Raven have cracked down our new hallmate. I thought we should probably go be with him. They're bringing him to the battle, whether he wants to go to the battle or not. That is the end of chapter 5.